wherein any student in the audience may come up to the microphone. Apologies. At this point, we will be having our 5-minute break before we move on to the live question and answer portion. Thank you.
So during the 5-minute break for any of our audience in the live stream, you may stay as candidate Manahan addresses the questions that were addressed to Kim a while ago in the question and answer portion. For our audience here, please return in 5 minutes. So again, for our audience who are part of our live streams, you may stay as candidate Manahan answers the questions that were addressed to him, which unfortunately a while ago was cut short due to audio difficulties. But here he is able to answer the questions. Again, this is for our live stream candidates. So our candidates here at Malcolm Hall. Um, it's okay. You can have you may still have your 5-minute break, but to our live stream audience, now we will be repeating the some of the questions addressed to candidate Manahan, as some of them were cut off a while ago in the live stream due to technical difficulties. So we will be repeating some of the questions and candidate Manahan will be answering these questions once again for our live stream audience.
So for the first question, again, what is your stance in the recent happenings at the Senate, particularly the change of the Senate President, the impending impeachment proceedings, and the enforcement of the warrant of arrest against Senator Bato de la Rosa? You may now answer for 1 minute.
Yes, thank you for that question. And for everyone listening in on the live stream, also thank you for staying and hearing me out in my question, in my answers. To address the question, I would say that it is disappointing to say the least to see the theatrics that the Senate has been trying to do to protect their own kind. And in this sense, I want to emphasize that there is a need to hold these public officials accountable and to hold these positions transparent for everyone to know what's going on in these nationally elected positions. Because as students, especially of UP Law, this isn't the type of leadership that we deserve to see from people who we expect to lead us as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Manahan. And for our next question, um, what is your specific stance on the hybrid learning model? And how will you balance the administration's need for feasibility and academic freedom with the student body's need for flexibility? Okay, you may now.
Yes, as for this, I would like to contextualize this in the context of UPBGC specifically, because UPBGC isn't an easily accessible campus. We either have, as students, we either have to walk or take a grab or have very specific jeep routes just to get to campus. So making hybrid adjustments will make it more accessible for students to attend their classes, especially in light of the transport strikes and rising fare hikes. That makes it harder for students to actually go to campus and attend class. So how would I try to address this is by taking a stance on creating a more consistent schedule and coordinating with the professors when they're more willing to do a face-to-face session and when they're more willing to do an online session, just so that everyone is clear in communicating what to expect and when they can actually avail of these hybrid avenues of learning. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Manahan, for answering those questions. resume with the presentation of the spiels of our USC candidates. Welcome back to the May 2026 General Election Convocations. And now at this point, we will now be moving on to our presentation of the USC candidates.
So now we will be welcoming the candidates for the University Student Council for the academic year 2026-2027 as they deliver their opening spiels. They will each be given 1 minute. First, let us call the candidate running for the position of councilor, candidate Gaya Mauricio.
Hello, good evening. Isang makulay na pagbati po lahat. Ako ay mula sa mga hanay ng artista ng bayan, currently the chairperson of Panday Sining UP Diliman, the incumbent College of Fine Arts representative to the USC. Ngayon, tumitindig bilang ating susunod na Culture and Arts or Coca-Coca Counselor. Bilang Coca Counselor, dedepensahan natin ang kultura kung saan malaya tayo maging kritikal. Particularly, yung platforms natin ay para sa kultura makabayan, siyentipiko at makamasa. Ang kultura makabayan ay naghahangad ng pagpapopularize ng anti-imperialist culture. Ang kulturang siyentipiko ay naghahangad para magsagawa ng mga immersion sa basic integrations. At ang kulturang makamasa ay pagprotekta sa democratic rights against red tagging. Kaya muli, para isa sa kulturang militante at makabayan, ako si Gaya Mauricio, inyong susunod na Culture and Arts Counselor. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Mauricio. Now let's hear from, also for candidate for councilor, candidate Publico.
Sumulong, lumaban, makibaka. And speaking of makibaka, mula po sa Sulong Tayo Coalition, ako po si Romer Publico, BA Political Science student, aktivista, anti-imperialista mula sa The League of Filipino Student, your incumbent USC People's Struggles Counselor. Ngayon nagbabalik sa konseho bilang Committee on Organizations, Fraternities and Sororities Counselor, or in short, COPS Counselor. Bilang COPS Counselor, sa gitna ng krisis, pasismo at korupsyon, habulan sa Senado at barilan para lang ipagtanggol o itago si Bato, higit lalong kailangan ng mga scholar at abogado ng bayan na Romer reading makibaka para sa pampublikong laban, edukasyon at espasyo ng pamantasan. Muli, ako po si Romer Publico, incumbent USC People's Struggle Counselor, ngayon inyong Committee on Organizations, Fraternities and Sororities Counselor.
Thank you,
po.
candidate Publico. Now let us welcome the next candidate also running for the position of councilor, candidate Amyvel Basco.
Ang sapatos, liga sa basketball. Ang damit, kubaw expo girly. At ang muka, sobrang Gabriela. Isang kulay lilang gabi sa ating lahat. Ako si Amy Basco mula sa Gabriela Youth, incumbent and sipag SC Social Academic Affairs Administrator. Ngayon tumatakbo bilang inyong militanteng Gender and Development Counselor. Bilang God Counselor, magsusulong tayo ng ligtas at inklusibong espasyo sa lahat. This will be done through our GAD representatives per councilin or capacitated through GSTs and vow paralegal trainings and consolidated through our GAD network. Susulong at makikibaka rin tayo para sa pag-review at pag-revise ng ating ASH code. Kaya naman po, samahan ninyo akong sumulong, lumaban at makibaka para sa tunay na pagpapalaya sa sangkababaihan at sangkabaklaan. Muli, ako po si Amy Basco, ang inyong militanteng Gender and Development Counselor.
Thank you, candidate Basco. Now let's hear from candidate for councilor, candidate Angel Lopez.
Hawak ko ang jeep at sawagan natin. Ganda gabi sa inyong lahat.
Ako si Angel Lopez, isang aktivista mula sa Agam Youth UP Diliman at nagmumula sa Sulong Tayo Coalition. At ang inyong Angel, Angel, baby, Angel. Your incumbent Engineering Student Council Chairperson, now your USC People Struggles Counselor. Sa ating pagtakbo, ating Angel Baby Kisin, ang sambayan ng Pilipino at Angel Baby yang boses sa mga batayang sektor. Together, let us engineer a society that truly serves the interests of the basic sector. Tiyak kay Angel, ating Angel Baby Bitin, ang ating mga paglaban mula dito sa loob ng pamantasan tungo sa kalunsuran at kanayunan. Muli, ako si Angel Lopez, ang inyong Angel, Angel, baby, Angel. Your incumbent Engineering Student Council Chairperson, now your USC People Struggles Counselor.
Thank you, Candidate Lopez. Next, let us welcome to the floor a candidate running for the position of Vice Chairperson, Candidate Reyna Hortel.
Mayang gabi sa tanan, ako si Reyna Hortel, incumbent CalSC Chairperson, your next USC Vice Chairperson. So bilang nagmula tayo sa Kolehiyo ng Arte at Literatura, isa sa mga ilulunsad ng UP Allianza sa USC ang tinatawag natin na Bantay Espasyo Network. It is an alliance of colleges and organizations na nakakaranas ng kakulangan ng espasyo. Kasama natin sila sa ating kampanya para sa transparency and accountability sa mga delayed infrastructure projects sa ating pamantasan. At habang ginagawa natin ito, gusto natin magkaroon ng mga alternative spaces. We will be checking mga idle rooms, unutilized spaces and idle spaces para gawing tambayan at student spaces while we are campaigning for safe and accessible spaces. And wait lang guys, may tanong ako sa inyo. Yupilo, saan ang bato? Reyna! Ako si Reyna Hortel, incumbent CalSC Chairperson, and your next USC Vice Chairperson. Mayang gabi sa
Thank you, Candidate Hortel. Now let's hear from our candidates for USC Chairperson, starting with Candidate Therese Mangusad.
Magandang gabi, UP Law. Sa pakikipag-usap natin sa ating mga kapwa-estudyante, nakita natin ang kakulangan ng pagtugon sa student spaces, student services, transparency and accountability mula sa ating University Student Council. Kaya naman binuo natin ang Isko Resibo. More than being plans of actions, ito yung panghahawakan ninyo, mga kapwa natin estudyante sa inyong susunod na USC. Dahil naniniwala tayo na dapat meron tayong USC na tutugon at tapat sa ating mga pangangailangan bilang mga kapwa-estudyante. UP, tayo ang simula ng tumutugon at tapat na pamamahala sa loob ng ating universidad. Always remember that great things come not in ones, not in twos, but in threes. Muli, ako si Therese Mangusad, your USC Chairperson from UP Allianza.
Thank you, Candidate Mangusad. Finally, let us now hear from the candidate also running for the position of Chairperson, Candidate Janina Moira Alfonso.
Sa panahon ng pananamantala sa ating lipunan, ang sagot sa eme-emeng pagtugon ng Estado ay isang paninindigan na Emmy na mahalang sambayanan. Kaya naman ako po si Moira Emmy Alfonso, the current Vice Chairperson of the UP Diliman University Student Council, a third-year BA Philosophy student, now in the line of fire with the studentry, your next USC Chairperson. Sinuong na natin ang hamon ng panahon at marami na tayo na pagtagumpayan. Ngunit marami pa tayong kailangang ipaglaban. Unang-una, ang pag-refine ng mga mechanisms for reporting red tagging cases. Ikalawa, ang pag-reclaim ng mga privatized and commercialized spaces. At syempre, ikatlo, ang pag-capacitate sa bawat scholar ng bayan na may kakayahan na maging pag-asa ng bayan. Syempre, kasama rin natin sa Sulong Tayo Coalition, si Vice Chairperson Fatima Mendoza. Kasama rin natin ang iba naming mga councilors, sina Councilor Lopez, sina Councilor Biglaen, Mauricio, Pilios, Jeronimo, El Salvador, at marami pa pong iba. Muli, ako po si Moira Emmy Alfonso.
Let us give a round of applause for our candidates for the University Student Council. We have finally heard what they have prepared to share with us today. Now let us see how they'll handle the questions prepared by the electorate. Given that the USC candidates also have their university-wide convocation, we only have questions for the candidates for USC chairperson. However, Colette is allowed to ask a question to at most 3 candidates. The USC candidates will be given 1 minute to answer questions directed to them. Let us now begin asking the questions prepared by the commission directed to the candidates running for the USC chairperson.
So our question, which is addressed to our chairperson candidates for the USC, given that the USC position is inherently political and may come with inherent risks, how do you intend to balance your official responsibilities while also ensuring the safety of the students? Let's start first with candidate Mangusad, and then afterwards, candidate Alfonso will answer. So candidate Mangusad, you have 1 minute to answer the question.
Regardless kung gaano kadelikado yung magiging posisyon natin bilang yung susunod na USC chairperson, ready tayong sumuong para ipaglaban yung mga karapatan natin bilang mga kapwa estudyante sa loob ng ating university. And more than being capacitated as the USC chairperson, sisiguraduhin natin na yung mga kapwa estudyante natin ay handang sumuong sa pakikipaglaban para sa ating bayan. Dahil nakikita natin na hindi lamang dapat yung mga student leader natin yung capacitated para sa mga issues na maaari nilang kaharapan while they're fighting for our rights, may it be at the university level or at national level. And dito papasok yung pakikipag-coordinate natin with local college councils, student organizations, student publications to ensure that we have different trainings, may it be paralegal, psychosocial, to ensure that students are capacitated to face different issues that they may face sa loob ng ating university.
Thank you, candidate Mangusad. Now let's hear from candidate Alfonso.
I think it is very clear that we first need to secure each scholar ng bayan before we expect for them to engage in such political action. And so we have many things and initiatives for this. Number 1 is to coordinate with the Committee on the Protection of Academic Freedom and Human Rights, wherein we can create quick response teams and immediate preparation for big red letter days. Ikalawa naman ang pag-ensure na makatuwang din natin ang LSG dito, na mga abogado rin ng bayan, na katulong rin natin sa pagiging paralegal team, pagkakaroon ng paralegal training, as marami pang iba. At syempre, ikatlo, to balance everything, we always need to have education in addition to each political movement, in addition to each mobilization, because it is through this that we can ensure and sustain our power and our unity as one UP Diliman. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Alfonso. And now at this point, may we call on the representative from the Philippine Collegian to ask any questions they may have to the USC candidates. We do request that you limit the question, address the question rather, to 3 candidates at most due to time constraints.
Hello, I'm Briggs from Philippine Collegian, and the question is, how can the USC's candidates mobilize the law studentry to participate in mobilizations or demonstrations in general? This question is directed for both Chairperson Betts and the coalition and party.
Okay, so sorry, both the chairperson candidates. Yes. Okay, so let's start with candidate Alfonso.
Ayun. Thank you for this question. First, I would like to mention na the incumbent USC has already been in partnership with LSG, and they've already been engaging in the mobilizations multiple times over, And I think this is something that we can sustain and maintain and continue towards the next USC. First, by understanding the conditions of each student, whether that's day or evening, and in addition to that, trying to create more creative ways of allowing them to engage in political movement and social civic movement. In addition pa sa kung ano yung mga ginagawa ng mga scholar ng bayan in undergraduate programs na may iba ring current conditions. And I think it is through this that we can really make stronger our partnership with LSG and to really live out ano ba yung kahalagahan at katunayan na meaning ng pagiging abogado para sa bayan. Thank you.
Now let's hear from candidate Mangusad.
Bilang nagagawa na ng UP-LSG na pakilusin yung mga kapwa-abogado natin para sa bayan. It is high time na tayo mga parte ng University Student Council ay talagang mag-ensure na meron din tayong parallel efforts to ensure na meron silang mga activities and initiatives na matatamasa mula sa University Student Council. Kasi this way, ma-ensure natin na more than engaging them in national and university issues, masisiguro din natin na mabibigyan natin ng tugon yung iba't ibang pangangailangan ng law students sa loob ng UP Diliman, UP BGC, and UP Iloilo. This way, ma-ensure natin na mako-cover natin more yung grounds ng different concerns ng students natin by ensuring that there are parallel efforts between UP, LSG, and the University Student Council for the students of UP College of Law.
Thank you to our chairperson candidates, and thank you to all of our candidates for the USC. So if any from the student body wants to ask any more questions to our USC candidates, you may do so through any other election event that's happening right now. At this point, we will now move on to the final part of this year's election convocations, the anonymous question and answer portion. While we do so, let's just wait for our candidates to return to our stage.
The Ad Hoc Committee for the Deliberation of Anonymous Questions has reported that the Commission received a total of 20 questions from both the Google form and the anonymous Dropbox. 0 questions were deemed as improper questions. However, we rejected 4 questions for lack of addressee. As per Commission protocol, all questions to be asked in this portion have been properly deliberated upon by the Commission. The hosts will be reading directly from the handwritten questions as submitted, and we are required to read them verbatim. However, hosts may make minor grammatical adjustments for clarity. Let us now begin with the first question. Candidates are given 30 seconds each to answer.
So again, we're just still waiting on for all of our candidates so they may answer any questions addressed to them. Okay, so now we can move on to our first question addressed to all of the incumbent candidates. So these are candidates Argana, Quaresma, and Arcilia. The question reads, what role did you play during the dean selection, and how did your stance affect the LSG's decision to support Dean Gwen? Again, what role did you play during the dean selection, and how did your stance affect the LSG's decision to support Dean Gwen? Let's start with candidate Arcilia.
All right, so I was elected during the special election, so at this time I was not yet an incumbent member of the Central Board. So I think that my opinion and my stance regarding this was not yet effective, or did not yet affect the decision of, let's say, the students. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Next, let's hear from candidate Quaresma.
So with regards to the dean selection, as the secretary, we were the ones who helped out in counting the different votes submitted by our students based on the polls that we did as to who they choose as their next dean. With regards to these votes, we counted them, we sorted out all discrepancies, and made sure at the end that we are accountable. We showed it not just to the LSU, but actually to everyone who attended that particular meeting as to how the votes were counted as well. And none of my personal stances affected it as well.
Thank you, candidate Quaresma. Finally, let's hear from candidate Argana.
Thank you very much. So as IVP, there were 2 main roles that we did to help in the dean selection process. First was in confirming, of course, our databases and student numbers, but thankfully the OCS was able to coordinate as well with the rest of the LGs through the secretary, through candidate Quaresma. And we also bolstered the dissemination of these messages and the survey itself to the student body. And in our role, of course, we voted for Dean Gwen, and we took on the suggestions from the student body and eventually voted yes.
I'm sorry, candidate, your time has run out. We'll be moving on to the next question, which is addressed to all the candidates. With the continuing issue of red tagging in the Philippines, how should law students protect democratic freedoms while maintaining responsible discourse? Again, with the continuing issue of red tagging in the Philippines, how should law students protect democratic freedoms while maintaining responsible discourse? We will begin with candidate Manahan.
Yes. So, to maintain responsible discourse and to uphold democratic freedoms, we must first acknowledge that as students, we can participate in these mobilizations that are meant to address these questions, these national questions that attack the red tagging, especially of UP being deemed as a school for supposedly recruiting NPA, but it's important that we address these questions with mobilization and communication.
Thank you, candidate. Now let's hear from candidate Urap.
Hello. First of all, we condemn all forms of red tagging, and that's why in our platforms, to make sure that everyone is stay informed and engaged about situations like this, we're going to conduct educational discussions and regular situationers coordinating with the UP and UPL, OLA, and FLAG. And as law students, we must continue to mobilize ourselves and take a stand and uphold academic freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Now let's hear from candidate Lim.
Hello. Aside from conducting the platforms, the EDs and the situationers that both Roman and I are pushing for, I am also noting or emphasizing that universities such as UP exist to question or critique social realities and to contribute significantly to public discourse, and red tagging undermines the very guarantees and rights that our constitution, the fundamental law of the land, enshrines and protects as the academic freedom.
Thank you, candidate. Now let's hear from candidate Panopio.
I think we should use and maximize all the platforms that we have, given the legal education and training that we were given. And then in UP Law, we were trained to be great lawyers. And I think that begins with using our platforms and standing for those who are aggrieved, especially those who are ragtag. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Panopio. Now let's hear from candidate Cordova.
Of course, student participation and mobilization activities is important, but in our participation, it's important to be responsible and stick to the truth in our actions and in our claims. So I believe that for students to be able to participate and maintain their safety, it's important for them, or they could utilize or take part in LSG initiatives and other mobilization activities held by the school. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Cordova. Now let's hear from candidate Ganzon.
Of course, so we condemn all forms of red tagging, and this issue is a major concern not only for the UP College of Law but for UP in general. And of course, we expect the students as scholars ng bayan to be very active in these rallies and to engage in activism. Therefore, our role as the batch representatives is to ensure, for example, under our programs, under On Ground, we have to ensure the safety of the students when it comes to participation in these mobilizations. Thank you.
Next, let's hear from candidate Ogata.
Una, marin natin kinokondena ang lantarang panre-red tag sa ating mga kasama. And with that, as future law practitioners, not just as future law practitioners, but as scholars ng bayan, as Filipinos, it is not only enough for us to know the law, but for us to go out of our classrooms, to organize and to mobilize, because now more than ever, dapat nating ipakita ang sama-sama nating lakas, ang sama-samang lakas ng sambayanan para labanan ang mga panreregtad na ganito.
Thank you. Now let's hear from candidate Kamba.
So I believe these are not mutually exclusive because responsible discourse itself is incorporated into the democratic freedom. So part of our democratic freedom is having this responsible discourse when it comes to what happens nga ba talaga on the things, kung bakit nga ba lumulubog tayo sa masa. So this is something that we should amplify even as law students. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Kamba. Now let's hear from candidate Pineda.
We are clear with our stance that we do not condone any form of red tagging, and this is clearly a way to silence the voices of the people. And bilang mga scholar ng bayan, no, may responsibility tayo na maging firm sa ating mga calls at syempre makiisa sa mga pagkikilos. At ang duty natin naman sa LSG ay to ensure na safe ang mga students, lalo na kapag sumasali sa mga on-ground mobilizations. Yun lang. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Pineda. Now let's hear from candidate Arcilia.
Red tagging is a violation of our freedom of expression, and we recognize this while we do the platform. One of my platforms is mobilization teams, wherein you will be spearheading mobilizations with different batches in different campuses with a quick response team, which will aid us with the legal protection. So with that, we will be protected while engaging in discourse. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Arcilia. Now let's hear from candidate Argana.
Isang madiin na pagtutol sa red tagging na ginagawang paraan ng Estado para maging terorista sa kanilang mga mismong mamamayan. At tayo bilang UP-LSG President, bukod sa pagpapalawig ng ating mobilization protocols, pag-ensure ng isang safe na UP law, ima-maximize pa natin yung mga resources natin bilang isang institusyon para sa batas. Kagaya nito, yung pag-connect sa ating free legal assistance group na headed also by our OLA director na meron tayong mas active role sa pag-ensure ng rights ng lahat. Thank you.
Finally, let's hear from candidate Quaresma.
We condemn all forms of red tagging. Having been a student leader in UP for 6 years now, of course, this has been an issue time and time again when it comes to red tagging. Of course, as the LSG, we have to be both active, both online and on the ground. When it comes to online, we have to release situationers to show the illegalities of why red tagging happens. And on the ground, we have to ensure the safety of our students so that they may not be victims of red tagging through our protocols and rally protocols as well.
Thank you to our candidates for answering that question. This next question is addressed to candidate Argana. The question reads, why did you say that your affiliation did not affect your stance during the dean selection process? Since that Zoom meeting was open to us non-central board members, we could see how your fraternity voiced out a different opinion during the initial deliberations. Again, why did you say that your affiliation did not affect your stance during the dean selection process? Since that Zoom meeting was open to us non-central board members, we could see how your fraternity voiced out a different opinion during the initial deliberations.
Thank you. Siguro sa buong campaign ko, dito lang ako gagamit ng salitang ako o I. Ang naging dahilan ko sa pagboto, una, supposedly ng no sa isang endorsement ng LSG, bukod pa, syempre, dun sa pag-forward ng survey, ay dahil ang gusto natin ay hindi magkaroon ng any sentiments of division. Nakita natin, kagaya ng mga students natin sa Iloilo na may ibang preference and hindi natin ginusto sana na ang LSG nila ay nakita nila na hindi nila kasama sa kanilang stand.
Thank you, candidate Argana. Now, for our next question, also addressed to candidate Argana. Recently, a group of girls came forward to some members of the LSG because one of your fraternity brothers sexually harassed them during a party. One of the campaigns, one of your posts condemns sexual harassment. How can we ensure that you will stay true to this commitment if it is one of your brothers in question? And what did you do with that incident? You may now answer.
There is no space for sexual harassment or violence in UP law or in any society that upholds justice and freedom. Kaya naman, unang-una sa lahat, nung nakuha natin yung concern na yun, binigay natin yung mechanisms for the student to address that concern to the administration and how the LSG should handle it with utmost confidentiality. Within the same day, sinimulan natin yung enhanced protocols kapag naka-receive tayo ng ganitong mga complaints. At dahil sa internally sa fraternity, nag-call tayo for accountability ng broad natin ng damay sa issue na yun. Salamat.
Thank you, Candidate Argana. Our next question is addressed to Candidate Quaresma. The question reads, why was the burden of Kapihan shifted onto sponsoring organizations? The LSG is financially capable. So why did the LSG only choose to feed students Max and Skyflakes as their contribution? Again, why was the burden of Kapihan shifted onto sponsoring organizations? The LSG is financially capable. So why did the LSG only choose to feed students Max and Skyflakes as their contribution?
So first of all, we have to be clear that we did not shift the financial burden to our sponsors. Of course, when it comes to these, they're not actually sponsors. They are partners with us with Kapihan. They give food because they want to be able to help our students go through Kapihan as well. Us as the LSG, based on feedback also based from previous Kapihans, we've resorted to giving more options. Now, especially with our coming Kapihan, please check that out also next week as well. So we've been able to improve, especially when regards to that.
Thank you, candidate. Now we will be moving on to our next question, addressed once again to candidates Argana and Quaresma. Do you feel that you were able to consult enough members of the student body on their needs and concerns? Let's start with candidate Argana.
Yes, I feel that so far it's been enough, but I admit na kailangan pang palawigin para sa isang truly inclusive na UP Law. Yung mga consultation na to ginagawa natin sa papiging active natin sa halos lahat ng LSG project na dinaluhan natin. Mapa sa Diliman yan, sinuportahan natin yung sa BGC, at sa Iloilo, kahit malayo tayo sa campus na yun, ay lagi nating chinecheck yung situation ng students, laging kasama sila sa mga proyekto natin, at higit sa lahat, ipagpapatuloy pa natin ito sa susunod na taon.
So, as your secretary, we've actually been able to reach all campuses with regards to our event and initiatives. This includes Kapihan, this includes our SEC cabinet, which for the first time reached Iloilo as well. Now, as your incoming president, we've actually been able to RTR to more than 40 blocks. This includes Diliman, BGC, and Iloilo. And of course, we have been consultative. When it comes to our plans, we are already ready as your LSG president. But of course, after being able to speak to them, we can further improve upon these as well.
Thank you for answering that question. Our next question is once again addressed to our president candidates. The question is, what were your shortcomings last year, and how can you ensure that they won't happen again? Again, what were your shortcomings last year, and how can you ensure that they won't happen again? Let's start with candidate Quaresma.
So first of all, one shortcoming would have to be, as mentioned earlier also, when it comes to Kapihan. So at the beginning, of course, there were some issues as it was our first Kapihan. We wanted to improve it. So in the coming Kapihans, we were able to provide more food. We were able to reach more campuses as well and adjust accordingly our budget. Aside from this, when it comes to the student lounge, we've also been able to improve its cleanliness by making sure that our admin is actually there to clean it and also provide cleaning supplies for this as well during our term.
Now let's hear from candidate Argana.
Thank you. So, pagdating sa ating Mental Health Week na again binalik natin after 3 years of a hiatus and ensure natin na lahat ng campuses ay kasama, Diliman, BGC, and Iloilo, siguro isang shortcoming na nakikita natin ay hindi natin anticipate na kukulangin yung student spaces dahil sa biglaang pag-shift sa energy saving regulations. So nangyari ito particularly sa Iloilo. Thankful kami dahil nakatulong ang ating mga batch representative, ang campus representatives natin sa Iloilo sa pagtingin ng mga alternative na setup. Pero in the future ay i-anticipate na rin natin yung ganitong closure ng student spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Now we'll proceed to the next question, addressed to candidates Quaresma and Pineda. What can you say about the fact that this is the 3rd year in a row that portions are running for the positions of secretary and president? As a constituent, it seems that prime positions in the central board are being consolidated in the hands of a single formation. Candidate Pineda, you may begin.
So, to state again, I am a member of the UP Porsche sorority, and I am here now running as your LSG secretary out of my own will and my own merits. I've been a student leader for multiple years in the past. I became a USC counselor, also a college rep, and also a counselor in my local college, and I take confidence in that. And I think it's in my experience that I have confidence that I can take on the role of being LSG secretary. Thank you.
Candidate Quaresma, you may begin.
So to be clear, I am from the UP Porsche sorority. So with this, actually, when it comes to my previous positions, these are actually some of the positions that I've had previously as a member of the UP School of Economics Student Council. I was batch representative, I was secretary, and I was also chairperson. And these are just positions that I feel that I can serve the college with my utmost passion, because this is why I am here. I have the passion to serve, and with regards to this, we will always be inclusive to all as well.
Thank you, candidates. Now we will be proceeding on to our next question.
Hello. So upon further deliberation by the 5-member ad hoc committee, we decided to declare a question for Quaresma and Organa as improper. As per ELECOM protocol, this question will not be asked in public, but a copy will be given right now to Quaresma and Organa. It is for them to decide whether they want this question to be asked and answered. So for the record, despite this question being rejected for being improper by the commission, the candidates to whom it is addressed have decided to have this question asked and answered.
So again, this question is addressed to candidates Organa and Quaresma. Despite being opposing candidates for the presidency, there is word that there is a much more personal relationship between the two of you. Is there any truth to this? And do you two support each other, whomever wins? Again, despite being opposing candidates for the presidency, there is word that there is a much more personal relationship between the two of you. Is there any truth to this? And do you two support each other, whomever wins? So let's start with candidate Organa.
Grabe naman, Tito Boy, yung tanong natin. Pero una-una sa lahat, syempre, nirespeto natin. Hindi, yung implication ng question, hindi ganun ka-proper talaga. Pero just to make it clear, syempre, friends, ever since na nag-serve tayo together in the LSG, and totoo na we will support each other, whoever wins the position, dahil ang lahat ng ginagawa natin ay para sa ikabubuti ng ating student body. So, pagdating naman doon, sana, moving forward, yung mga tanong natin, mas mapalabas natin yung tunay na mga adhikain, mga plataforma ng ating mga candidates, and hindi magdalv masyado sa personal life. And with full respect as to candidate Quaresma, syempre, pasensya at nagkaroon ng ganong...
Now let's hear from candidate Quaresma.
So, similar answer to Jabs, of course. I met Jabs actually before when I was 2BR. He has always been a good friend to me, despite, especially even now, as opposing candidates, we've been very respectful to each other. We are very much friends as well. So with this, of course, we would, of course, support Jabs if he were to win as president, because I also believe that there are different ways to serve the council. And I really respect him, and I believe he is also a capable leader.
Okay, this next question is addressed to candidates Pineda and Quaresma. The question reads, if candidate Pineda and candidate Quaresma were to win, this would be the third consecutive year that portions will hold both secretary and president positions. Additionally, candidate Pineda is a new member of Porsche, which coincides with your campaign. How can we trust that you have the students' welfare as your primary motivation? So again, let's reiterate that question. This is to candidates Pineda and Quaresma. So if candidate Pineda and Quaresma were to win, this would be the third consecutive year that portions will hold both secretary and president positions. Additionally, candidate Pineda is a new member of Porsche, which coincides with your campaign. How can we trust that you have the students' welfare as your primary motivation? Let's first have candidate Pineda answer the question.
So again, I am a member of UP Porsche sorority, and as I mentioned earlier in the first question, is that I have been a member of multiple student council positions, and I take confidence in that. And I think that really set my capabilities and my firm stance on being with the students. So I don't think it would be a problem because this is something I've always done out of my genuine willingness to serve. Thank you.
Now let's hear from candidate Quaresma.
As we have also mentioned earlier, these are positions that I've actually done before as as part of the Econ Student Council, and these are positions, once again, which I believe where I am most capable to serve our students as well. So when it comes to student representation, of course, as the LSG president, we are an LSG president for all, for everyone in our community, everyone in our college, and I have always exuded this in both of my previous terms in the LSG, as I've always done so, because my mandate to the students is always 24/7.
Thank you, candidates. Now we'll be proceeding on to the next question, specifically addressed to candidate Pineda. Your platforms attempt to address internal systems within the LSG. How are you sure that these are the primary concerns in the LSG, given that you don't have any LSG experience? And why did you not run first as a batch representative? You may now answer the question.
So again, stressing on my past experience, which I am confident in, and I feel like I am capable because of these past experiences. Essentially, the work of being a USC counselor, even being a college rep or a local college counselor, they mirror what is being done in the LSG because, again, it's all about accountability and transparency. That's what it is about being a student leader. Thank you.
This next question is also addressed to candidate Pineda. The question is, what accomplishments did you achieve in your time as a USC counselor that you can implement as LSG secretary? Again, what accomplishments did you achieve in your time as a USC counselor that you can implement as LSG secretary?
So during my time as a USC counselor, I was actually also the basic student services head. So very fitting then with right now as my role as LSG secretary. And during my time in the USC, I headed the Kapihan and I partnered with different orgs and offices. And this is a large scale because it's for the whole UP Diliman. And this is something I could bring to LSG, ensure that Kapihan would reach all campuses and all students. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Now we'll proceed to the next question addressed to candidate Panopio. You were a day student longer than you've been an evening student. How can you truly represent a community you've only known for a short time? Again, you were a day student longer than you've been an evening student. How can you truly represent a community you've only known for a short time? You may answer.
I believe I offer a fresh perspective coming from the day program. And I think it speaks a lot of my desire to serve the UP Law community because it did not take me long to decide that I wanted to run and be of service to the community. And I think with my past experiences, my leadership experiences with other organizations, and with my background in health, I can be of use to the UP Law community. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Panopio. This next question is also addressed to you. In one of your classes, you mentioned that the evening program is easier than the day program. What do you mean by this? Again, in one of your classes, you mentioned that the evening program is easier than the day program. What do you mean by this?
if I may clarify, that question was actually also asked in an RTR, and from what I remember, the way I answered it was, I actually think that going to the evening community and working and being a working student is harder because you have to balance work and academics, and I think that being a working student, no, I would really respect everybody.
I'm sorry, candidate, your time has run out. We'll now proceed on to the next question, addressed to candidate Lim and Panopio. You two have a history in which one of you ghosted the other. How will this affect you both should you two become the Diliman evening reps for the next academic year once again? You two have a history in which one of you ghosted the other. How will this affect you both should you two become the Diliman evening representatives for the next academic year? Let's begin with candidate Lim.
Okay, I will address that. Whoever I choose to speak to and not to speak to is personally is a personal business of mine, and it's different. It's separate and distinct from my professional responsibility. So professionally, I always make it to a point that everyone feels acknowledged and seen in the very way that they deserve.
Thank you, candidate Lim. Now let's hear from candidate Panopio.
Well, me and candidate Lim have been friends even before entering law school. And I don't think that there was any ghosting that happened since we actually remained friends even now that we are running for the same position. Thank you.
Thank you to our candidates. And now this next question is addressed to both candidates for 2BR. So candidate Ganzon and candidate Cordova. The question reads, why did you not run for first-year batch representative? Again, why did you not run for first-year batch representative? Let's start with candidate Ganzon.
Hello. So when I entered UP Law, I actually had a major milestone that was waiting for me. Specifically, I was preparing to take the licensure for a certified public accountant. So I know that whatever extra time that I had outside of academics, I had to dedicate it to preparing for the CEPALE. But however, despite this, I still made sure that I was felt and I was able to help my block. I've been a BDL for 2 SEMs already. And this time, I want to bring that leadership into the batch. Thank you.
Now let's hear from candidate Cordova.
Hello. Okay. The reason I didn't run is because I knew that for me this would be an adjustment period, my first year in law school, and I wanted to take that time, of course, to focus on my academics because before student leaders, we would be students first. And for why I decided to run now, that's because I was able to find the time to get to know my batch, although not to the degree that I would have fully liked, and I hope to expand on that through my initiatives as batch representatives in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Cordova. Now we will proceed on to the next questions, which are from the Google form. First, we'll begin with a question addressed for the candidates for president. Will we ever have a concrete plan for the student lounge? Many of you, especially the presidential candidates, have plans for student spaces and etc. But the lounge has been a problem since my first year. It's always dirty, unkempt, so much stuff lying around, it's barely even a student space really. That on top of the fact that it becomes unavailable for a good portion of the year because it's reserved for the bar takers. I'm curious, should we still expect any progress on this particular student space, or do we just forget it? Let's begin with candidate Argana.
Thank you so much. So this was actually a point of discussion always in the meetings with the dean, and we're grateful that there is actually a donor who will be holding the cost of renovation of the student lounge. So it will be overhauled. And right now, while it's reserved for the bar takers, of course, we acknowledge the need for the LSG to look for alternative study spaces, especially kung yung student lounge natin na hindi available for months on end. And we will conduct regular inspection of it once it's turned over. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidate Argana. Now let's proceed to candidate Quaresma.
So as candidate Argana has said, the student lounge right now is under plans for renovation. This has all already been approved by our admin. Right now, we are just waiting for the different architects, for the different materials to come. But we will ensure that the student lounge itself will be renovated and will be ready for the students. So when it comes to alternative spaces, of course, this has also been an issue for me for Kapihan. So during Kapihan, actually, we've been able to provide for alternative spaces. So feel free to check those out also next week. But also in the coming year, we will also still provide alternative spaces.
Thank you to our candidates. This next question is also addressed to our candidates for president. What accountability measures do you plan on setting up during your term, if ever you win, to address the concerns of the student body regarding any possible lapses in your duties? How can you prove to the student body materially and tangibly, and not just through promises of disclosure and dialogue and holding space, that you ran for the sake of representing the student body and not to freshen up your resumes? And don't just say that your track record will speak for itself. For many, it will not. Again, what accountability measure do you plan on setting up during your term, if ever you win, to address the concerns of the student body regarding any possible lapses in your duties? How can you prove to the student body materially and tangibly, and not just through promises of disclosure and dialogue and holding space, that you ran for the sake of representing the student body and not to freshen up your resumes? And don't just say that your track record will speak for itself. For many, it will not. So we can start with candidate Argana.
Thank you very much. So yung atin, hindi lamang natin sisimulan, kundi nasimulan na. Ito yung ating internal grievance mechanism, which we also give credit to the President and the EVP for co-handling. And for this year, we're enhancing the IGM, first by making public the full guidelines, the enhanced guidelines, para may inclusion na rin ng reporting of these concerns. And syempre, para clearer yung threshold in accordance with the UP Law Students Constitution, ano yung pwedeng address internally and ano ang sa student tribunal. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Now, let's proceed on to our next question. Once again, oh, sorry, candidate Caresma, please.
Thank you. So when it comes to accountability, it has been my promise and my JISPOA that we will be releasing all protocols and especially grievance protocols when it comes to accountability already, even before our term officially starts at the school year. Aside from this, it is also part of my JISPOA that we will have feedback seminars, which include not just feedback surveys, but also active and proactive consultation with our block and batch representatives to ensure that we are an LSG that is accountable and also ready.
Thank you, candidates. Now let's proceed on to the next question, addressed once again to the both of you. How do you think student leaders can help prevent fake news and misinformation from spreading within the community, especially during elections? Let's start with candidate Quaresma.
So when it comes to fake news, of course, we know that this is an issue. For example, if any fake news were to arise, the LSG has to be ready with the facts. We have to be a communicative LSG, not just within ourselves, but also to our students. We have to be clear about what the situation is, what our action steps are moving forward to ensure that our students are not confused, that they also know that the LSG is there and ready to respond to any concerns as well.
Candidate Argana.
Salamat. Unang makakatugon dito yung plataforma natin sa isang college-based disciplinary policy para sigurado mga estudyante na kung mayroong mga kumakalat na fake news, ay pwede nilang i-report agad kung saan ang gagaling ito at mariresolba within the college, hindi na maghihintay ng university processes. Next naman, makakatulong sa pag-avert ng ating mga fake news yung campus situationer, and augmented ito with the rest of the volunteer corps, which will be turning into the volunteer corps assembly, and syempre yung ating transparency reports within the LSG.
Thank you to our candidates. And now our next question is addressed to candidates Argana, Quaresma, and Arcilia. Recently, a fellow scholar ng bayan, USC counselor Eliza Alano, got killed in what the military deemed as an encounter, despite evidence pointing to the contrary. However, no statement from our college or LSG was released on this as far as I know. Hindi ba kaya manindigan ng LSG about these kinds of issues? can we expect anything from our aspiring candidates na titindig ang konseho ng UP Law sa mga ganitong human rights violations or even go as far as helping the families of the victims? Let's start with candidate Arcilia.
All right, so we recognize this and we recognize the shortcomings that we have. No, this is a room for improvement for the current LSG, and moving forward, we know that these suggestions are taken into account. I think one of the main considerations that I have is the platform for mobilizations and quick response teams as well. But not just this, I know that statements are not enough. We have to be more proactive with regards to human rights violations. So statements together with mobilizations would be the key for me. Thank you.
Next, let's hear from candidate Quaresma.
So we have to be clear that we condemn the killings of Alisa Alano and the Toboso 19, and these are issues that should not be taken lightly. Of course, as the LSG, we were able to co-sign with the USC regarding a statement regarding what happened to her, and she was a student leader, much like me and everyone else on the stage. Now, moving forward as the LSG, we have to be active by releasing statements, by having stance-making protocols as well. But aside from this, of course, we have to be active on the ground and ensure that our student leaders are.
Finally, let's hear from candidate Argana.
Unang-una sa lahat, isang pakikiramay sa lahat ng mga naging kaibigan ni Alisa Alano, sa rest of the UP Law community na nakiisa rin doon sa pagkondena sa ginawang terorismo ng ating Estado. At bilang LSG President, unang-una sa lahat, kailangan ma-mobilize agad ang LSG mismo sa stance-making. And before pa dito, ay enhance natin yung capacities. Kaya makikipag-cooperate tayo with USC kung paano natin mapapabilis yung pag-release ng ating stances. And syempre, coupled with mobilization. Thank you.
Thank you for these answers, candidates. And we will now move on to the live question and answer portion. Here, any student in the audience may come up to the microphone and ask any question to the candidates. So UP Law students who want to ask live questions must raise their hands and wait to be approached by our treasurer, Nin Saparese, before they can stand up to the mic and ask their question. Once again, UP Law students who want to ask live questions must state their names before asking their questions. Also, as a reminder, questions are prohibited from being addressed to all the candidates, so they should be selected. Furthermore, candidates are only given 30 seconds to answer the question. For the sake of time, thank you.
Hi, I'm Vito. I'm a 3L. So my questions will be directed towards the presidential candidates. The first question will be addressed to both, and then one question for each of you. So first, is the LSG president tasked with representing and acting for the UP Law staff as well? Is the UP Law staff someone who should be represented by the LSG president or acted for by them?
Which candidates or both candidates? So candidate Argana, you may proceed. For 30 seconds, thank you.
Okay, so I hope to be quite technical and discerning with this question. First, sa proper representation, of course, meron tayong kanyang mga labor union and leaders natin for the UP Law staff. But still, tayo ay isang leader ng buong community, hindi lamang ng student body. Kaya naman, part of this, of course, yung pag-appreciate natin sa ating UP Law staff, ini-expand natin yung handog na project ng treasurer, para naman meron tayong areas for discussion with the staff of UP Law and represented sila even in the college assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, candidate Quaresma.
Of course, in our platforms, we even include the UP Law community. We realize, of course, as we are student representatives, we represent the best interests of our students. However, when it comes to our staff who has been here with us, who has been very helpful to us, we are able to help them if ever there are issues that can arise from them that the students can help out with. When it comes to handog, of course, as mentioned, this is where we are able to give our thanks to them. And of course, we have to be one as a community to ensure that our UP Law is actually safe for everyone.
Okay, I have two follow-up questions to that, if permissible.
Yes, you may.
Okay, so we all have our staff members. Please name 5 staff members.
Candidate Quaresma.
When it comes to this, we have Kuya Richard, we have Sir Jim, we have Surgeon, Ma'am Olga, of course, of our library as well as of course, as they just to end this, as since I can't think, as UP Law LSG President will be.
I'm sorry, candidate, your time has run out. Candidate Argana.
Thank you very much. For this, we start actually with the OCS. So meron tayo si Ma'am Zara, Ma'am Nads, Ma'am Glads, si Ma'am Norma, si Sir Ken, si Sir Benj. And lahat sila ay nakakatulong sa ating mga student registration processes and ina-acknowledge natin yung kanilang efforts pagdating sa advising and enrollment concerns.
Oh, that's very nice, but IVP works with OCS. Name something else, please.
So isa sa mga na-bring up during our RTRs actually, if this is proper with the timing also, is na part na rin dapat ng ating discussion yung mga manininda natin. So sina Ate Leonie, sa ating mga guards, sina Sir Richard, sina Sir Jim from maintenance as also mentioned by si Sir Julius from ating blessings, and sina Ate Rochelle sa may Bohol, and si Sir June dun sa may harap. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So, now that I have your stances on the staff, I need to raise an issue. Do either of you know how much maintenance staff is paid on Saturdays? 0. They show up every Saturday. They don't get paid. What will you do? Either works. Either candidate, please.
Unang-una sa lahat, tayo ay humihingi ng pasensya na yun ang kinahatnan ng ating mga manggagawa sa UP College of Law. Hindi yun makatarungan para sino man na nagtatrabaho para sa serbisyo sa mga estudyante. Unang-una sa lahat, yung resources ng LSG ay pwede nating i-allocate towards the augmentation ng mga services na nire-render kung hindi man sapat ang binibigay ng ating administrasyon. We understand, baka hindi siya na isama sa GAA, pero we will also push during college assembly.
Candidate Quaresma.
This is a really big and pressing issue. Thank you for raising this as well. Of course, we have to, first of all, understand that this is a labor issue. This is something that we have to bring to the proper offices, such as the AD and the Dean. When it comes to these things, of course, we understand that there are classes, there are events that happen on Saturdays, and they have to be properly compensated for the work, the tireless work that they do. So with this, as LSU, we can forward these concerns to them, be in close coordination, and help them out with their different concerns.
Thank you for your answers for those.
Thank you so much, audience. Vito Yap, unfortunately, we would be needing to give the floor to the other members of the audience due to time constraints. Thank you to our candidates for answering, and thank you for these questions. Do we have other members of the audience who would like to raise a question? Counting once. May we please kindly ask the member of our audience to state their name before asking their question. Thank you so much.
I'm Elias Vince Mauricio from Block 2B. I'm part of the bike commuters of UP Law. It's easy to say that we'll prioritize bike parking, but how can we assure, or how can we get the assurance that that will happen if the people in office don't share our struggles? Because I don't bike to school for fitness or because I want to. And how can I expect something to be done for me by people who don't understand what it feels like?
May we ask to which candidates are you addressing this question to?
For those who mentioned bike parking even once tonight.
Who are these candidates? Okay, candidate Argana.
Maraming salamat sa pag-bring up niyan, lalo na sa mga forum na ganito, at pasensya na kung hindi natin na-feel na tayo ay fully represented. Tayo mismo, hindi man tayo nagbabike papuntang school, tayo naman ay walang sasakyan at isang commuter. Kaya naintindihan natin na hindi parating ang mga spaces natin, hindi tayo represented dahil walang naka-allocate para sa atin. Walang transport options na nagsusupport. Kaya naman sa ating college assembly, ilalaan natin na bukod sa bike parking spaces ang ating ibibigay sa mga estudyante.
Thank you, Candidate Argana. Do we have other candidates who have mentioned? Yes, Candidate Pineda.
Yes, I mentioned that also earlier, yung possibility of biking spaces. And while I do not share the same experiences for bikers, I actually do commute to school and minsan from Antipolo pa. So, danas ko ang pagiging commuter. At syempre, no, more than this being a law issue, it's also a unified issue na dumadami talaga yung kotse dito sa UP. So, more than coordinating with our admin to lobby for more biking spaces, ay syempre makiisa din tayo sa calls na ba't nga ba dumadami yung kotse dito sa UP? Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Pineda. Do we have other candidates who mentioned such issue? With that, we'll move on to our next question. Do we have any from the audience members? Kindly raise your hand and we will be approaching you. Going once, going twice. All right, so that was the last question for tonight. Thank you to all those who submitted questions and participated in this year's election convocations. We will now give the candidates another chance to deliver their spiels, and each candidate will be given 1 minute to deliver their closing speech.
We will follow the order we followed in the opening spiel. So with that, first we have candidate for BGC Day Rep, candidate Manahan.
First of all, thank you to everyone who made this convox possible. Thank you to everyone who participated and asked questions and for bringing up such important issues so that we can actually talk about them in this forum. And of course, thank you to everyone, the campaign teams, for all your support and all your help. And once again, I believe that UPBGC has the potential to become more connected, more involved, and become a more empowered community through service and transparency, accessibility and networking, and community empowerment. And after all, a strong community doesn't happen by chance. It happens when we take a stance. That's why you should lead with Lance. Again, I'm Lance Manahan, and I hope I can earn your trust and support to become your next BGC Day Rep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, let's hear it from our candidates for the position of Diliman Evening Representatives, starting with candidate Urap.
First of all, thank you so much for attending this year's convocation. And I would like to say that leadership is not only knowing how to lead, but only learning how to listen and guide. That's why we're lobbying for, again, addressing the concerns of the students as the next Liman Evening Representative for mode of learning, especially during crisis, accessible student spaces, especially during after work hours, and lobbying for the concerns of the students into a high regard as a representative of the whole evening student body. And we don't end there. We will turn theory into practice. Dahil naniwala kong ang estudyanteng manggagawa ay para sa masang manggagawa. Take the spaces that need us. Turn theory into practice. Take a stand in pressing social issues and take action. Lumubog at makisama sa masa. Isulong ang lideratong para sa estudyante, para sa babae at bakla, para sa bayan. Maraming salamat.
Now let's hear the closing spiel from another candidate for Diliman Evening Representative, candidate Lim Cyril Ella.
So thank you so much everyone for participating in this discussion, especially for the evening students, since we know that we have very limited time. So para sa evening students, pinagkakasya lahat ng responsibilidad sa 24 oras. This is for you. I understand and shared our lived realities, and with that, I'm committed to championing initiatives and platforms which genuinely respond to the student needs and which aim to enhance, enrich, and empower the evening student experience. Evening community, ilalaban ko kayo, ilalaban ko ang ating karapatan. Mabuhay ang evening students, mabuhay ang working students.
Next, let's hear from candidate Panopio.
I want to thank everyone who participated and raised issues that should be talked about. I want to thank the UP Electoral Commission for providing this platform. Again, I am Moriel Panopio, your next Diliman Evening representative for more real actions, more real solutions, more real panopio. Thank you.
Now let's hear from our candidates for second-year batch representative, starting with candidate Ganzon.
So leadership is about being on track, on call, and on board. On track because being a leader means you have to be organized and you have to move with direction. On call because you have to be responsive. You have to listen before deciding and you have to consult before acting. And on board because being a leader means bringing students together and making sure that nobody is left behind. And this is the kind of leadership that we want to bring as second-year batch representative. So once again, thank you everyone for attending the convocations, and may this serve as a reminder as well for us to vote next week. And always remember, it's on with Ganzon. Thank you, everyone.
Let's now hear from candidate for second-year batch representative, candidate Cordova.
Once again, thank you all for attending and for your active participation. I would also like to thank the Elecom team for organizing this event and for their continued guidance throughout the entire campaign period, as well as the non-teaching staff that have taken their time to help out with the event today. I also want to thank my campaign team, my blockmates, and my batchmates, of course, for their continued support and for taking the time out of their day to help us and to listen to our platforms in order to help us understand how we can make or better serve the UP Law community. So once again, for a batch that is more supported, represented, and heard, you can leave it all to G. I'm G. Cordova, running for second-year batch representative. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Now let's hear for the candidates for the third-year batch representative, beginning with candidate Ogata.
Muli, magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Ako si Seiji Rubio Ogata ng Block 2C at kasama ko ang aking kaibigan na si Camille Camba from Block 2G. At simple lang ang aming paniniwala that true leadership will not only help you get through the day, but help you come and seize it. So muli, we have the day platform. So we have dynamic community, accessible leadership, and yielding futures. And we have different projects for our own batch. And here, we invite you all to come and seize the day with Come and Sage. Maraming salamat po.
Next, let's hear from candidate Camba.
Once again, good evening. I am Camille Camba, and together with my good friend Seijiro Ogata, we are running as your next third-year batch representatives. For once, we would like to say thank you to the Black representatives who met with us for consultations during this campaign period. Because if not for your assistance or if not for your inputs in behalf of your blocks, these projects wouldn't be possible or these projects wouldn't be expounded. And second of all, thank you to all the blocks who have met with us through for the past week. There are currently 6 blocks right now, and we'll be meeting with the last block on Monday. So we would like to thank you, and with that, we would like to reiterate that please come and seize the day with Come and Sage. Thank you.
Now let's hear the closing spiel of our candidate for secretary, candidate Pineda Beatriz de Leon.
Full name. Wow. Ayan, so magandang gabi sa ating lahat. Unang-una, maraming salamat sa lahat ng pumunta dito sa Convox, nakilahok at actively nag-participate, no? At maraming salamat sa aking mga co-candidates. Congratulations, no, for stepping up into this kind of challenge. Nandito ako bilang law student, bilang student leader, bilang scholar ng bayan, at bilang si BIP, na handang maglingkod bilang inyong LSG secretary at handang harapin ang hamon na nag-endanger sa ating mga democratic institutions. At to end, no, dahil gabi na, just a little bit more energy. Hawak ko ang beep dahil bilang LSG secretary, dama ko ang pulso ng UP Law Student Body. Hawak mo ang beep dahil bilang UP Law students, may kapangyarihan kang palakasin ang boses mo. At hawak natin ang beep dahil bilang isang buong UP Law community, may kakayahan tayong pagandahin ang boses natin dito sa UP Law. Muli, ako si Beatriz. Beep, 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 Pineda, your LSG secretary. Woo!
Next, let's hear from a candidate for external vice president, Candidate Arcelia.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to every one of you who took the time to participate. No, thank you to the Elecom and to the staff. Thank you to my professor who gave us, cases for tomorrow. Thank you so much for my research team, my campaign team, to those who practiced with me. I know that you're there watching me, so thank you. I feel your support. So my name is Clem Erica Arcilia. You can call me Clem. I'm running for the position of EVP, and now that I've clemmed it, I will, clem further. Thank you, guys.
Finally, let's hear from our candidates for president, starting with candidate Quaresma.
So, good evening, UP Law. My name is Cassandra Camille Cami Quaresma, your incumbent secretary and your next LSG president. At dito pa rin kami para sa inyo, lagit lagi. Now, I believe that active student leadership does not actually start when we step into our positions. It starts when we are in active consultation with our students, which is why it is important that we have platforms like this, that we are able to reach and hear all of the different concerns, the different questions that our students have. Of course, I want to thank all of you here, whether online, on-site, especially to our organizers, the Elecom and the staff as well, for being here and giving us this opportunity to be able to speak with you all. Of course, as your next LSG president, make sure, UP Law, that you always remember your 3 C's: college, council, and community. A college that is well represented and active, a council that is transparent and accountable, and a community that is inclusive and empowered. Once again, my name is Cassandra Camille Cami Quaresma, your next LSG president.
Finally, let's hear from candidate Argana.
Isang magandang gabi muli sa ating lahat. Walang hanggan na pasasalamat hindi lang sa inyong pagpunta dito, sa pagpaparating ng inyong mga hinaing, kundi sa tiwala na ibinigay ninyo sa amin for the last 2 years. Salamat at hinayaan ninyo kaming gawin ang mga mandato at tinulungan sa pag-fulfill ng mga promises namin sa inyo. Salamat at inyong pinuna yung mga kailangan naming i-improve. Kaya naman sa brand of leadership sana na ating pipiliin for the next year, wag nating tignan lamang yung plataforma, tignan natin yung mga tunay na aksyon na ginawa ng ating mga kandidato. Hindi man naging parte muna ng LSG, kundi bilang parte ng ating UP Law community. Muli kami, walang hanggan ang pasasalamat sa bawat estudyante na nakikiisa, hindi lamang sa pagkilos, kundi pati sa mga pagsalita, pag-speak up sa ating mga national issues. Kaya sana makaasa kayo mula sa lahat ng kandidato at sa akin, makakaasa kayo na we.
Let us give another round of applause for the candidates running for the LSG Central Board for the academic year 2026 to 2027. Thank you to the candidates for gracing this event and to the audience for taking the time to attend the College of Law's election convocations.
Now, to close our event, let us call on the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Alex Daniel Guerrero, to deliver the closing remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for attending the convocation. The Commission greatly appreciates your time and willingness to engage, get to know our candidates, listen to their platforms, and also hold them accountable to issues that matter to our community. To my fellow commissioners, to the administrative group volunteers, our hosts, the school admin, and also the tech staff who has been helping us since earlier, thank you so much. From the earliest of preparations, you've been with us and you've carried our event with great dedication and care. And for that, I really appreciate for all your work. You all did well. We gathered tonight at a time when it is difficult to look at our national political landscape without a sense of frustration or perhaps even embarrassment. We watch as elected officials who are entrusted with the weight of public office reduce that privilege to a spectacle. We see revered institutions treated as stages and the public's trust stretched thin by those who were voted into power to protect it. This is why the elections matter. The electoral process is not merely a procedure. It is the foundation of our democracy and the moment in which we collectively decide who is worthy of leading us. Tonight, even within this theater, we participated in that process. Even if it is much smaller than the national elections, it is still the same in its principles. We asked questions, we listened, and we prepared ourselves to vote, and that matters. We are students of the UP College of Law, the country's foremost institution for legal education, and the school from which our nation has drawn so many leaders, lawmakers, and defenders of justice. This is not a title to wear lightly. We are being trained not just to learn the law, but also learn how to uphold it. And we start that by participating in our own democratic processes. If we cannot take our own student elections seriously, we have no standing to demand better from those who govern us. But if we do, we are already practicing the kind of civic integrity that our country desperately needs from its future lawyers. The Commission hopes to inspire this mindfulness in every UP Law student so that even beyond the campus, we may practice the values we have already been learning in this institution. Thank you again, everyone, and may you have a blessed and restful weekend.
Let's give a round of applause for Chair Guerrero, and thank you very much for that empowering reminder.
So if you were not able to catch the start of this program, this convocation will be available on our YouTube channel.
Before we finally close the event, we would like to leave you with some important reminders. To the candidates, please take note that the campaign period will end on May 18, that's a Monday, and the campaign ban will start on May 19, so that's a Tuesday at 12 a.m. midnight. All electronic campaign materials must be inaccessible or taken down by 12 a.m., while physical campaign materials must be taken down by 12 p.m.
For everybody, the election proper will be on May 20 to 21, 2026. Again, May 20 to 21. The plebiscite for this the plebiscite for the amendments on the 2022 Students' Constitution will also be held on the same dates. So to see the proposed amendments, you may scan the QR code flashed on the screen. And you may also visit the official Facebook page of Elecom, where we also posted the entire document of the proposed amendments. So the Commission will provide more information as to how the voters can cast their votes. Kindly visit the UP Elecom official Facebook page from time to time for more updates. With that, we end our convocations for the general election for the Law Student Government Central Board for the academic year 2025 to 2026. Again, I'm Liza Mama.
And I am Iko Urbano.
And thank